Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into something pretty unique this time.
Yeah, this one's really interesting.
We got this speech delivered in Punjabi, and it's all about how the Sikh community fits into India today, where they stand.
It's a really powerful perspective.
Definitely, and that's what we're here to unpack. What are the speaker's main arguments? What historical stuff are they referencing? And most importantly, what does their vision for the future actually look like?
Well, right off the bat, the speaker compares two organizations, and this comparison kind of sets the tone for their whole argument.
Okay, so which organizations?
They're talking about the Shiromani Akali Dal, a big Sikh political party. It goes all the way back to 1920.
1920, okay.
And then the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, the RSS,
Okay.
Hindu nationalist group, founded just a few years later, 1925.
So you get these two organizations, different backgrounds, popping up around the same time. What's the point of comparing them?
Well, the speaker's saying that both of them, from the beginning, they had these ambitions to really shape India, make a big impact.
I see.
But the difference, they argue, is that the RSS, they've achieved that. They've got that widespread influence. Whereas the Sikh community, they haven't been able to maintain that same level of political and cultural power.
So there's this contrast, right? Like how these two organizations, their paths have kind of diverged over time.
Exactly. And they even go on to describe the Sikh community's approach as protests and enduring hardship, contrasting that with what they see as the RSS's more strategic approach.
So is the speaker implying that one was just more effective than the other?
Yeah, I think that's a fair reading. They even say that the Sikh community has lost everything, and they don't have a clear path forward. It's pretty stark.
Wow, that's a pretty heavy statement. It sounds like they're really trying to get the community to do some soul searching.
Definitely. They're urging them to come up with a 100-year plan. Think about that, a 100-year plan. They're talking long-term vision to reclaim their position and their identity.
Wow, 100 years. Okay, so long-term thinking is key here. But how do they expect them to actually do that? I mean, where do you even begin with a plan like that?
Well, this is where it gets really interesting. They bring up this powerful analogy, the Jewish community.
Oh, okay. How does that fit in?
They talk about the Holocaust, right? The persecution. But then they highlight the rise to global influence, the establishment of Israel.
Right.
And they attribute that success to a few things: unity, long-term planning, and get this technological advancements.
Uh-huh.
It's like they're saying, look at what they were able to achieve. So it's not just about surviving, it's about thriving.
So they're drawing a parallel there. The Sikh community can learn from that and use technology to their advantage too.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the historical comparisons, this sense of loss, this call for long-term planning. What else? Where does it go from there?
Well, the speaker doesn't stop at just the long-term strategy. They also bring up some serious concerns about threats to the Sikh community. And they're talking both internal and external threats.
Okay, so let's break that down. What kind of threats are we talking about here?
Well, first they talk about internal threats. They're worried about, and I'm quoting here, RSS elements, disguised as Sikhs, actively working to undermine the community.
That's a bold claim. I mean,
Right.
What exactly do they mean by RSS elements? Why is that such a big concern?
Right. Well, remember we talked about the RSS earlier, that Hindu nationalist group. The speaker seems to be saying that there are individuals claiming to be Sikhs who are actually aligned with the RSS and working against the community's interests.
Oh, I see. So it's like this fear of infiltration almost, right?
Yeah.
People pretending to be part of the community, but working against it from the inside.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. They go on to talk about external pressures too, things like the partition of Punjab
Right, back in 47.
and the encouragement of Sikh immigration.
Okay.
They paint these as deliberate attempts to weaken the community.
So we've got historical comparisons, the sense of loss, a need for long-term planning, and now these internal and external threats. It feels like they're building up to something here. What's the takeaway? What's the main point?
It all leads up to a powerful call to action. The speaker is basically urging the Sikh community to focus on education, especially in areas like bureaucracy and government. Get that influence, that decision-making power.
So it's about taking control, being proactive.
Absolutely. The speaker is basically saying, look, you can either strategize for the future or surrender to the current situation, except being marginalized.
It's a pretty stark choice, isn't it?
It is. And you know what? We're just getting started. There's a lot more to explore as we dig deeper into this speech and what it all means. The speaker actually uses a really powerful analogy to kind of drive home the Sikh community's situation right now.
Oh, really? What's that?
They compare it to a house. Like, imagine your house is under attack, right? People are throwing bricks and rocks at it constantly. You're so busy just defending yourself that you can barely, even exist.
You're in survival mode.
Yeah, exactly. But there's no time to really thrive, to build something.
Right. It's just constant pressure, this feeling of being under siege.
That's the image they're painting. And then they contrast this with Israel.
Okay.
They present Israel as this model of resilience.
Okay.
They're like, look, Israel also faces threats, but they point out how they've managed to build this strong, technologically advanced nation.
Yeah, that's a good point. They've really managed to not just survive, but actually thrive, in the face of a lot of adversity.
Right, and that's what the speaker is getting at. They're basically saying to the Sikh community, look, if Israel can do it, why can't we? We have that same potential.
Okay, so it's like a challenge almost, like step it up.
Exactly. It's like they're saying, think bigger, be bolder. Don't just accept this kind of defensive posture.
So how does this tie back to that call to action we were talking about earlier, with education and everything?
It's all connected. They're urging the Sikh community to stop relying on, outside support, to focus on empowering themselves from within. And that's why education comes in, right? Investing in those areas like bureaucracy and government.
So it's about being proactive, taking control.
Precisely. Shaping your own future, not just reacting to what other people are doing to you.
And I remember the speaker using some pretty strong language, right? It was like, either step up and take control or surrender, something like that.
Oh, yeah, totally. There's a real sense of urgency in their message. It's not just about making little changes here and there. It's about recognizing that the Sikh community might be at a crossroads.
A turning point, yeah.
Yeah. And they need to make bold choices now to secure their future.
So we've got external threats, we've got the call for internal empowerment. But I know the speaker also pointed to some internal weaknesses within the Sikh community. Can we unpack that a bit?
Yeah, for sure. This part of the speech, it really gets at the speaker's concern about internal divisions and how outside forces could be manipulating things.
Okay.
They're really critical of what they call fake RSS members who they claim are infiltrating the community.
Now that's a strong accusation. What do they mean by fake RSS members? And why is that seen as such a threat?
Well, think back to what we talked about with the RSS, right? The Hindu nationalist group. The speaker is basically saying that there are people pretending to be Sikhs, but they're actually aligned with the RSS and their agenda. They don't give specific examples, but it's clear they're worried about internal betrayal, like the community needs to protect its unity.
So it's about being aware of the influences that could weaken the community, maybe even divide it.
Exactly. And then they go on to talk about historical events, things like the partition of Punjab and the encouragement of Sikhs to emigrate. They suggest that these things weren't just random events, but were maybe part of a bigger plan to weaken the community.
We talked about the partition earlier, but why would encouraging emigration be a threat? I mean, isn't that a good thing? More opportunities.
Well, yeah, on the surface it might seem that way, right? But the speaker's saying, hold on, what if this is actually a subtle way to diminish Sikh influence within India?
Okay, so less people in India means less power.
Exactly. They're not saying that everyone who emigrates is part of some conspiracy or anything, but it's important to think about the bigger picture, right? What are the potential consequences?
Right, so there are these different layers to it. It's not just about individuals making choices, it's also about how those choices might impact the whole community.
Exactly. And it highlights how complex this issue is, right? Emigration can offer amazing opportunities, but it can also have unintended consequences.
So from historical comparisons, the call for long-term planning, to these internal and external threats, this speech really covers a lot, doesn't it?
It does. And what I think is so powerful is the speaker's conviction. This isn't just some academic exercise. It's a passionate plea to the Sikh community to wake up and really fight for their future.
It's a wake-up call. But this deep dive, it's not over yet.
Right. We still need to explore what all of this means for the Sikh community and other marginalized groups, globally.
We've covered a lot of ground, haven't we? I mean, from those historical comparisons to the threats they see on the horizon, and then that call for, like, a total community shift. What was it that really struck you about all this?
It's tough to pick just one thing, but I think the speaker's worry about what emigration means for, the younger generations of Sikhs, that really hit home for me.
Yeah.
They make this argument that the first wave, those who emigrate first, they might hold on to their roots, But what about the kids who are born and raised in these totally different places? Will they even, know what it means to be Sikh?
Right? It's this classic dilemma, isn't it? How do you fit into a new world without losing your own heritage? It's something a lot of diaspora communities struggle with.
It really is. And it makes you think about how culture changes, especially in this globalized world we live in. Can you just, pack it up and take it with you? Or does it have to change? Does it become something new?
Yeah. It's a tough question. Does the speaker have any answers?
Not really, not in a concrete way. But they definitely challenge the community to be more, deliberate, proactive, find ways to pass down their values and traditions, their history, even if those younger generations are growing up, miles and miles away.
So it's not enough to just hope for the best. You got to actually do something.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the speaker's main point, that whole idea of long-term vision, strategic planning. They're arguing that you can't just, react to every little thing that comes along. You got to have a plan, a real roadmap of where you want to go.
And that plan has to take into account everything, right? Like building the community up from the inside, but also dealing with those external forces.
Right. Because, like the speaker says, it's either you take control of your own destiny or, well, you risk becoming irrelevant, being forgotten. And I think that message, it goes beyond just the Sikh community.
It applies to all of us, right? We all want that sense of belonging, being seen, being heard. It's really powerful stuff.
Absolutely.
Well, we've explored a lot today, and it's definitely given me a lot to think about. What would you say is, the biggest takeaway, the thing you want people to really remember from all this?
I'd say, for me, it's that history matters. Understanding power, how it works, that's crucial for any community, especially the ones who are struggling, the ones facing those extra hurdles. The Sikh community's story, it offers some really valuable lessons about strategy, about resilience, about thinking ahead.
Thinking long term. Yeah. Those are some powerful tools to have no matter who you are. And I really hope that our listeners, that they keep thinking about this, about how these ideas connect to their own lives, their own communities. Because ultimately, don't we all want a world that's more fair, where everyone has a voice?
I think that's a great place to leave it. It's on all of us to build that world.
That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and keep those conversations going. We'll see you next time.